Sometimes all it takes is one entitled move to unlock the sweetest kind of revenge. Hello and welcome back to Karma Stories. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. In today's episode, we have a travel scam that backfires and sends a property owner into a legal nightmare, customers with workplace chaos, and one truly unhinged Pizza Hut shift lead. Huge shout out to the Karma crew, your support means the world, and as a thank you, you get exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. If you want early access to compilations and member-only episodes, like the story of Rick, just hit that join button underneath the video on YouTube. Alright, on to today's stories, let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Flossing Horse 741. I should cancel on my end? No problem. I booked accommodation 2 months in advance for St. Patrick's weekend in Dublin. It was a fairly ancient B&B, but for €115, it was a place to sleep and cheapest option for the busiest weekend of the year in Dublin. It was one double bed for me and a buddy to share. It was pay on arrival. 3 weeks before the stay, the accommodation manager messaged me on the app I booked the stay on, telling me there's a problem, I can no longer stay, and to cancel on my side immediately. No apology, let alone help offered by them. This was followed by multiple phone calls daily, along with text messages in a harassing nature, saying I need to cancel now so I can get my money back. Once again, it was pay on arrival. I didn't answer the calls or messages telling me to cancel. Something felt off, so I checked the listing for the night I was supposed to stay, and it just so happens the accommodation had been listed again for double the price. Likely, the manager realized St. Patrick's weekend was a cash grab. Maybe not immediately, but at the property manager's request, I simply rang Booking.com and told them I'd like to cancel my booking. The customer service rep asked why I was canceling. I explained in detail all the above to her, and things took an unexpected turn for the property manager. Ultimately, the rep agreed the property was acting in an unfair manner, and the solution was that Booking.com would find me accommodation within 1 kilometer. Originally, they tried to get me to stay way outside of the city, but I wasn't having it. The original property would then be liable to cover any difference in cost. Here's the good part. Finding accommodation 3 weeks before St. Patrick's Day in Dublin is about as difficult as trying to light a fire with flint and steel in the rain. Near impossible. Everything within a 1 kilometer range was booked out, except for a well-known 4-star hotel. The room alone cost €350 per night, and had 2 double beds, much bigger room, and in a nicer location. The customer rep had to get it cleared by her team lead, so I just sat on hold doing chores for 25 minutes. Eventually, they came back and said it was all signed off on, and they'd send me a special link. What a treat! I gladly accepted their compromise. This in turn meant the property owner that tried to force me to cancel on my end was now indebted £235, and we got a massive upgrade for the same price we originally had. I had to pay the €350 up front and had to keep receipts and show proof of payment to the booking partner after our stay, but I got my refund of €235 the following week. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called It's Shoo. It says, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when the property manager found out how much they screwed themselves, haha. Opie responded and said, we had a good laugh about this while enjoying a fresh pint of Guinness in the bar of the hotel. Another commenter down below called Avid Learner said, sometimes you gotta shake things up a bit for the better, even if it takes a little persistence and a lucky break from the booking site. Opie responded and said, exactly this. I spent about 3 hours in total on the phone to them over the course of a week, mostly on hold, but I work remotely. I was able to work away or do chores while I was on hold. Okay, does anybody else here feel like the original property owner still got what they wanted in this case? They made OP cancel, and OP did cancel. They were on the hook for a little bit more money, but I'm willing to bet you in those last couple of weeks before St. Patrick's Day in Dublin, they were able to rent out their place for a good amount times the amount that they were charged. Booking.com could have made this a really sore point for this property owner. They could have just said, nope, you're not able to book for that weekend because you said that the property is not available. That's why OP wasn't able to be there. But I guess that's not quite how this one turned out. You can warn someone all you want, but if they're determined to ignore expert advice, sometimes the best lesson comes with a 4-figure price tag. This story comes to us from Expert Magician 1531. The customer is always right. I work for a Nissan dealership as a vehicle technician, and I look after the high-performance vehicles, GTRs, 370Zs, and about 13 years ago, we fitted a set of front parking sensors to a Nismo 370Z, and they didn't work properly for some reason. These were Nissan branded sensors, and we had fitted them on many other vehicles with no issues. After a while, replacing the control unit and the sensors, they still refused to work correctly, so we got in touch with Nissan technical support, and found out from them that they don't work on the 370Zs and the GTRs, so please don't fit them. We had to replace the front bumper of the Nismo 370Z and take the expensive lesson on the chin. A few months later, we sold a new GTR to a, to put it mildly, aggressive customer that had to have things his way, and we were definitely perceived as the lower class. He wanted front parking sensors fitted to his new car, and the salesman let the order through to us. The sting of what had happened before was still there, and we told the salesman straight away that it's not a good idea, and to tell the customer that they will not work. The customer, knowing everything, stated that they will work and there's no reason why they shouldn't. He's had them on previous vehicles and wants them fitted, and at a reduced price for the stress we caused, telling him he can't have what he wants. So, we fit them. They don't work great, but do to a degree, and we tell the customer that we warned him they wouldn't. He took the car away and was back in a couple of days, saying it was unacceptable and we need to get them working correctly, or he will cause a big stink on social media and get his lawyer involved. So we spent a week tinkering with the car and no joy. They just wouldn't work right. By now, he's ringing in every day to see if they are fixed. We would say, sorry sir, as we were told by Nissan, and pass that information on to you, they won't work on your vehicle. You were advised strongly not to have them. So he wants them removed, and to fit them, you need to put holes in the very expensive bumper. Obviously, he isn't happy with the 4 holes in the front of his car, and demands a new bumper from us. Luckily, all calls are recorded at our dealership, and we had him on call requesting sensors to be fitted despite our advice. We refused to replace it for free. He stormed off threatening lawsuits. A few weeks later, it's back for a new expensive bumper at his cost. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Comb Jellies Are Cool. It says, if that was me, I'd be embarrassed enough to buy the bumper at a different dealership across town. If only there were some kind of signal that these people were going to act this way when they came in. But I think we all know that these kinds of people never use their signals anyway, right? I think we also need to take a moment to acknowledge the fact that when a customer's treating you like crap, you should definitely be allowed to refuse service to that customer. Like, hey, we told you how this was going to go, and it went that way. We're done dealing with you now. You can get it fixed somewhere else. Have a nice day. We've seen some very unhinged workplace meltdowns on this channel, but this one starts with a screaming shift lead and ends with one of the most bizarre walkouts I've ever read. This story comes to us from Wonderful Rule 2515. If you don't want to be here, then leave, because I don't need you. The shift lead who said it, Adriana, 20-something, tried to get me fired after dismissing me from my shift. I got the job at 16 because I was dating one of the other shift leads. Already off to a terrible start, I know. My boyfriend was one of those characters that people either loved or hated. Mostly hated if you come from a loving home, because he was admittedly a terrible person, and Adriana especially hated him. I'm sure she had her reasons. One Saturday morning, I showed up to work to find Adriana yammering about my boyfriend calling out that day. He didn't tell me he was calling out, and since Adriana was visibly upset already about his absence, I texted him to ask what's up. Why did you call out? Adriana is really mad about being short-staffed on a Saturday, and now she's going to be yelling at me about it all shift. My boyfriend was a real crap stirrer, and I was somehow incredibly effing oblivious to this at the time. I texted him mostly to vent, but of course, he used this as an excuse to start an argument with Adriana. He texted her something accusing her of talking crap, which for the record, I did not say she was doing, and I can hear from the kitchen, she immediately started yelling into oblivion about how if I have something to say, I should say it to her face, and how I'm a stupid effing dumb bee. Literally so effing stupid. This bee is the dumbest girl I've ever met. Why are you even with him? So valid, queen. I was a little dense back then, I guess. Amidst her tirade about how stupid she thinks I am, she comes into the office where I'm eating my pre-shift breakfast of Boston Market macaroni in total silence. This whole time, I was just disassociating into my Mac, because what the ever-loving F else would I do? Not only did I come from a home where yelling often led to me dodging flying lamps and drawers, but I was genuinely scared she'd have her cousin jump me if I pissed her off, well before this even happened. So she's standing there, I'm eating, kinda smiling out of discomfort, just watching her tear into me even more about my intelligence. Why? Because my boyfriend called out of work. It was honestly so bizarre, had escalated so quickly, and I was so disassociated. Life kind of felt like it was moving in slow motion in that moment. She eventually says the magic line that snapped me out of my disassociation and freed me from my wage slave chains that lovely Saturday morning. If you don't want to be here, then leave, because I don't need you. Now again, this is Saturday morning at a Pizza Hut that is already short-staffed. I knew for a fact that she was BSing not needing me, but I also knew that she said it right in front of the office cameras. So I'm thinking, that sounded like an approval to leave early, didn't it? Especially after being effing berated for 15 minutes straight as soon as I walked in the door for something I didn't even do. She later tried to get me fired for walking out of my shift, and the first thing I did was tell the general manager to check the cameras. I should have just let them fire me, honestly. Adriana, if you're out there, I live every day thanking God that I didn't have to experience a phase of life that included screaming at 16-year-old girls first thing in the morning at my big fancy Pizza Hut shift lead job. I heard you also got fired for assaulting a customer. It's okay. I understand that being a shift lead at Pizza Hut is a very high stakes environment to be working in. No, really, you don't look insane at all screaming your head off inside a fast food joint on a nearly daily basis. Completely sane and very intelligent behavior right there. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called AbleWay16. It says, "Glad you stood up for yourself. You handled that way better than most people would. Toxic managers like that don't deserve good employees like you. No one deserves to be treated like that." OP responded and said, "I'm a lot quicker to tell people to shove it these days." Unfortunately, at such a young age in a workplace, we just take a lot of the crap that the managers hand down to us because we really don't know what our options are at that point. We're young, we're naive, and we need the job and enjoy the money that we get from it. So we put up with a whole bunch of crap that we really don't need to. Labor laws and worker rights really should be taught in high school. Some neighbors just can't help themselves, but when one guy threw a full-blown tantrum over a chicken coop, the response was both petty and perfectly legal. This story comes to us from Diverse Voltron. You want to throw a fit over the property line? No problem. So I bought a house in 2018. I had to in a hurry so I could get my mother in my old home before her chemo got intense. My family had outgrown the one we were in, and we found one that needed some work but had 5¼ acres and a chicken coop. Neighbor, Dan, obsessively manicures his property, and it is much nicer as a result, but the price and features work for us on our side. We fix up and paint the chicken coop, only interrupted once by Dan asking us to tear it down or move it. Surely the coop was well on our side of the property line, I thought. I politely declined and described how the only thing I'd be doing is building an enclosed run towards my house to protect the birds from predators after fixing some things inside the house that have been neglected. The previous owner was a serious alcoholic, and there's a lot of work to do. Dan walks away angry but defeated. A couple of years pass and the run is built exactly as described, and our informal survey shows the property line about 20 feet back, and I build gardens roughly the same distance from the property line. Dan has a survey done that suspiciously puts the back corner of the coop and about a third of the run over the property line, but we agreed that it could stay so long as I don't encroach any further, and I eventually move it, which was my actual plan. He said to take all the time I need, declining my offers to buy the dirt or trade easements and reimburse him for the cost of the survey. Another year goes by and Dan has changed his tune. He interrupts a target practice session with my 2 foster kids to demand that I demolish the coop and run soon, to which I said I suppose I could push that project up to next fall, 2024. He isn't happy but seems pacified. I wasn't thrilled either, but I'm a reasonable guy and would prefer to have a good relationship with a neighbor I don't like much. Enter May 2024, 6 months before I agreed to do anything, and this guy shows up in my backyard wanting to talk about the gosh darn coop again. You know, Dan, you said I could have all the time I needed and then demanded I tear it down, going back on your cue the most childish temper tantrum I think I've ever seen. He was literally stomping on the ground with elbows out, screaming about suing me and how he'll own my whole house by the time he's done with me. Malicious Compliance. F you, Dan. I decided the best place for that coop is exactly where it is. It's been there about 20 years, and adverse possession only requires 10. I can take that 12 square feet of dirt from you, and you'll even have to pay my legal fees. Only the run needs to move since it's only been there 5 years. That's exactly what I did. The new run connects to the gardens, and the roof funnels the rooster's crows right to his house. Setback requirements say structures must be 5 feet from property lines. The back corner of the run is now exactly 5 feet 2 inches away from the supposed property line, and he gets to hear and smell my chickens every time he's outside. He will not have peace until he dies or moves. I am well within my rights, and while I do struggle with medical and PTSD issues from my service, I learned very well from the Navy how to be technically correct in a way that only works for me. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Shadowlace366. It says, honestly, removing 12 square feet of competition with legal precision is elite tier pettiness. Dan underestimated someone with Navy training and property law knowledge. OP responded and said, yeah, he really should have made the previous owner remedy the issue before the sale. There's a lot of legal precedent in that. I guess they were good friends though, laugh out loud. Another commenter down below called Denver Pilot said, good story. You keep saying supposed property line. Why not get a surveyor out, preferably while Dan is on vacation? He doesn't even need to know you surveyed, and find out. If it goes in your favor, you'll have papers to wave in his face whenever you feel like watching an adult throw a hissy fit again. OP, this last commenter has the right suggestion. You need to get your own survey done, even if it's just to confirm the one that the neighbor had done. Also, maybe get a couple of different people out to do it, because if you get the guy that they had out and they were friends with that guy, you're probably going to lose some space. Also, I think it might be time to double up on the amount of chickens you have, you know, just because you really like eggs, right? If you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to follow us on your podcasting platform of choice, and if you're on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really does help us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.